Hey, good morning, Drive Time. Welcome back. As always, I'm David Drum. And normally about this time, I either introduce the guest that we're going to have on, or maybe I give you some context about what we're going to discuss today. But today's a little bit different. The first thing I want to do is I want to welcome and say hello to my classmates from Southeastern University. This Drive Time, for you who are joining from school, Drive Time's a weekly podcast and video that gets released. We focus on the issues that men face. I mean, really, they're issues that we all face, but we do it from the perspective of men, from the perspective of men. And the whole goal of it is to get 1% better each week, to find some tangible takeaway each week where we can grow and improve, whether as a husband or a father or just a man of God. So for those of you who normally watch Drive Time, you're like, what the heck is going on? Well, this is part of a class assignment where in a homiletics class, I need to present a message. And I thought, what better thing than to kind of cross the two different lanes of my life and share with all of you guys. Now, it's interesting in class, we're talking about metaphors and the way we kind of tell stories to bring up points. And a lot of times when we share stories, it's an old story. It's something we dealt with in the past. And well, this is from the past, but like last week, the past. So I was on vacation. I was in Arizona with my wife. And we had actually gone there a year ago with our daughter, who was 11 at the time. She's 12 now. And we opted to go just the two of us to get away for a little bit and reconnect. Well, last year when we went, we visited the Grand Canyon. It was spectacular. But we only got to hike, I don't know, maybe about 1.5 miles down into the canyon because my daughter was going to have a hard time getting back out. We weren't really prepared for anything more than that. So this time, as we got close to our trip, my wife and I discussed it, and we decided we wanted to take on a challenge of hiking all the way down to the floor of the canyon to the Colorado River and then back out again in the same day. Interesting point of note is most websites, like the National Park Service, they actually don't recommend that you do it in one day. But we were going to give it a shot. We had done some research. We had bought some additional equipment, different packs and hydration bladders. And we realized that there was going to be a need for us to carry quite a bit of water and even some food with us in order to make the trip. So literally just last week, we get there, we start hiking, and we had a great pace going down. It took us about 3.5 hours to reach the canyon floor. And we felt really good about our pace, our planning, our food selection, how much water we were carrying. The packs were heavy, but you know, we again felt like we had made wise choices along the way. So after a quick break at the bottom and some cool pictures next to the Colorado River, we started back up. And very quickly, what we realized, if you're not familiar with the Grand Canyon and the layout, when you start hiking from the bottom up, you actually climb about 1,200 feet in the first mile. So we weren't even a mile in, and we really began to realize how difficult of a hike it was going to be. And for my wife, what she realized was the weight of the additional water she was carrying. So we each had 2 hydration bladders, 2 separate pouches of water in our packs. And what she was realizing was that carrying the second one was just too much weight for her. And it was pulling on her pack and just weighing her down. So I did what I think most husbands would do in that situation, really what a lot of guys would do if someone they care about is struggling. I took her weight and put it on me. I took her hydration platter and I put it in my pack. So I had that additional weight. So we started moving, and the truth of the matter is she was still moving slow, but I was moving slower. And, you know, there was help available. Like I said, we'd planned and we'd purchased extra gear. One of the things we purchased was a set of trekking poles. And if you're not familiar with these trekking poles, they kind of look like ski poles, and they let you use your hands and your arms and your shoulders to take some of the weight off of your back as you're climbing. And there were poles that my wife had that I could have used, but I just thought, oh no, I can do this. It's not that big of a deal. I didn't want other people on the trail, not that there were a lot of them. I didn't want other people on the trail to see me using the equipment that would have helped my wife, who is obviously having a hard time, even though I was having a harder time. I did what a lot of guys do in that moment, and I let my ego get in the way. I mean, what would other people think? I mean, geez. But again, as the steps went by and the altitude increased and time ticked, I was falling further behind and I needed more breaks. And what I realized is the people who did pass us, whether they were going up or going down, they could see I was struggling. And the weird thought crept into my mind. I actually wanted to tell them why I was struggling. I wanted them to know that I was carrying all the weight. But I mean, let's face it, they wouldn't have cared. So what's the point of all this? The point is this. When we struggle, people around us see it. And when we're struggling, they don't know how much weight you're actually carrying from the outside, because from the outside, my pack and my wife's pack, very similar in size, slightly different. But they didn't know that I had more weight than she had. They didn't know that I had taken weight that she had planned on carrying and put it in my pack. So we get to this weird point as guys sometimes where we just feel like it all depends on us. We have to be the one carrying the weight, and it's not for anybody else to carry. And here's the thing. After about a mile and a half, my wife said she would take the water back, that she would put it back on her back. She had consumed more water, so she had even less weight in her pack. She saw that I was struggling. She saw that I was falling behind her, and she was willing to help me at that point. But no, I got it. I can do this. We'll be fine. She offered for me to use the trekking poles. Nope, don't need it. I'm okay. I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. And guys, I don't know if any of those lines ring inside your head, but I can't count the number of times that I will think or say the words, I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. Because that's what we as men a lot of times are conditioned to do in society, in our workplaces, in the world. And here's the crazy thing. When we are reluctant to accept the help that's available to us, whether it's emotional help, mental help, physical help, or spiritual help, it doesn't just slow us down. Everybody we're with is delayed. Let that sink in for a minute, because my wife would have kept on moving faster had I not kept slowing her down, even though I was the one who was helping her. See, as the day went on, we started at 8:40 in the morning. And like I said, we made it to the bottom in 3.5 hours. We felt really good about our chances of not only making it out before the sun went down, but we felt really good about our chances of being able to make it to the gift shop before it closed. But because we were prepared, we had actually brought headlamps in case we got delayed, in case it took us longer. And the further we went, the longer into the day it went, the more fearful I became of not only having to climb out of the Grand Canyon wearing a headlamp, but the temperatures were falling. The overnight lows that night were going to be about 20 degrees. We weren't physically prepared for that. So there was this fear about what would happen if I couldn't keep up. So I was continuing to put this pressure on me. But here I was again in a position where I could have used the physical help around me with the trekking poles. I could have allowed someone else to help me with my wife carrying weight again. And ultimately, that's what happened. She finished one hydration bladder. I gave her one back, and she was able to carry that the rest of the way. There are these opportunities for us to engage, to allow others in, and allow them to help us. I've asked this question at our men's group more times than I can count, honestly, is this thought of, if a guy walked into our group, if a guy that you don't even know walks in and you can just see he is worn out, beaten down, weary, and he looks like he's carrying the weight of the world on his back. And he just said, hey, man, I need a little bit of help. I need someone to help me carry this weight a little bit. I need someone to talk to. You know, I ask for the show of hands. How many people would be willing to share some time and listen? And almost every single time I've asked this question, the whole room will raise their hand. They're all willing to help. But then I ask the same question on the other side of, how many guys are willing to come in here and be the guy who says, hey, I need a little help. I need some help carrying this weight. I need someone to listen to me for a minute. And it never fails. There's only a couple of hands that go up. It's this double standard. We are conditioned as men, whether it's from our fathers, our coaches, our teachers, movies, whatever it is, we're conditioned that as a man, you're always ready to lend a hand. You are always ready to help, but don't ask for help. Figure it out. Make it work. See, here's the crazy thing. In the midst of struggling, this was a conversation God and I were having as I was struggling, as I wanted to stop total strangers and say, hey, the reason why I'm moving slower than my wife is because I'm carrying all the weight. And I just think you should know that. But I don't want any help. How insane would that conversation have sounded to them? But that was a conversation that I was having with God less than a week ago, just this past week while I was on vacation in one of the most beautiful surroundings that I've ever been in. And the worst part is I missed out on most of it because my head was down and I was just focusing step, step, step. So there's some biblical truths that I want to share with you. Some of them, it's probably going to be familiar for you. Ecclesiastes 4 says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to pick them up. That was me. The worst part was I wasn't alone. I had someone there who was willing and able to pick me up. And over, I said no. So that's not an issue with society. That's an issue with me. That's an issue many times for a lot of guys like me. So again, because this is a drive time, again, for my classmates, what that means is as we close out our time, as I wrap this up, what I want to do is give a tangible, give a takeaway, something for us to do this week, myself included. Now, I will tell you, I've already started this process. So the reality is we have to be willing to put down some of that weight and share the load. And the way we do that as guys is we have to have trusted relationships. We have to engage in a relationship that allows us to be vulnerable like that with other Christian men. Even guys, if you're married and you're watching, I would say beyond your spouse, there needs to be a trusted Christian brother there, someone who shares your faith, shares your values, that you can share these struggles with. Now, I've already done this. I started this by explaining to one of my Christian brothers, one of my trusted brothers, to say like, hey, man, this was a conversation I was having with God as I was struggling to get out of the canyon. And to start putting that into practice. So here's the thing, guys. Here's the challenge for this week. Man, reach out. Be that guy who walks into the room and goes, hey, man, I just need someone to listen to this. Because at the end of the day, you may not even need their help. You just need their ears for a minute. So guys, thanks for tuning in. For my classmates, I appreciate that you're here. Again, this is a weekly opportunity that typically is not just me talking, but I didn't think the professor wanted to hear someone else's voice through this. But we do this weekly. So guys, you're welcome to join us weekly. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and about 7 different podcast platforms. But so this week, guys, engage, find someone out there to connect with, and we'll see you again next week here on Drive Time.